Have you ever noticed that people don't truly value what they have until it's gone? It's a bitter truth in relationships. A woman may feel secure, even careless, when a man gives her everything without limits. But the moment he pulls back, the moment he reclaims his energy, everything changes. That's when she starts to miss him, the very man she once took for granted. Step 1. Silence speaks louder than words. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons in human connection, especially in relationships. People often assume that words hold the strongest impact, that constant communication and constant explanations prove love or loyalty. But the truth is, silence can communicate more than any long speech ever could. When a man keeps giving, keeps explaining, keeps proving himself, the woman becomes comfortable. She starts believing that his attention is endless, that no matter how she reacts, he will keep trying. But the day he stops speaking, the day he pulls away and chooses silence instead of pleading, that is the day she realizes the weight of his presence. When someone is always available, always expressive, their voice becomes background noise. It blends into daily life and is taken for granted. She doesn't stop to think about what it means because she feels secure knowing he will always remind her of his feelings. But silence is different. Silence creates space. Silence creates doubt. Silence creates questions in her mind that she never asked before. Suddenly, she is left alone with her own thoughts, and those thoughts become louder than anything he ever said. She starts to wonder why he isn't explaining himself anymore, why he isn't reaching out like he used to, and why he seems so calm while she feels unsettled. That shift in energy is the first step toward missing him. Words can be debated, argued with, dismissed, or ignored. But silence has no argument. Silence cannot be twisted or reshaped. It forces her to confront reality without distraction. The man who once used to fight for her attention, defend himself, or beg for her time is no longer engaging in that battle, and the quietness of his absence becomes deafening. Every notification she doesn't get, every call that doesn't come, every message that doesn't appear reminds her of how much he used to care. What was once overwhelming attention suddenly feels like a blessing she overlooked. Silence also communicates strength. It is not weak to stop chasing. It is not weak to pull away. It is, in fact, a declaration that his worth is not dependent on her recognition. By not explaining, by not repeating himself, he is showing that he values his energy more than trying to convince someone who did not appreciate it when it was freely given. That realization cuts deep because now she starts to see him differently. He no longer looks like the man who was desperate to be chosen. He looks like the man who chose himself. And that image is far more powerful than any words he could have spoken. The mind plays strange games in silence. She begins to replay old conversations, old moments, old memories, because there is no new interaction to hold on to. The past becomes her only connection to him. She thinks about how he used to make her feel, how much effort he put in, and how consistently he showed up. Those memories, once ignored, now become valuable. The quiet makes them louder. The absence turns them into reminders, and she starts to miss the very things she once overlooked. Silence also removes predictability. When he was expressive, she always knew what he felt. She always knew he would come back, explain himself, or wait for her to decide. But now there is no reassurance. There is no guarantee. That uncertainty makes her restless because she no longer has control. Silence makes her realize that she is not as secure as she once believed. It shows her that his presence was never promised. It was a choice he made every day. And if he can choose silence now, it means he can also choose to move on completely. That thought is what keeps echoing in her mind, making her miss him in ways she never expected. Step 2, consistency turns into distance. Consistency is one of the greatest gifts in a relationship, yet it is also the easiest to overlook. When a man shows up every single day with the same love, the same patience, the same care, it creates a rhythm in a woman's life. She grows accustomed to the constant check-ins, the steady support, the little things he does without asking for credit. That consistency feels safe, but over time, it can also be mistaken for routine. And once something feels routine, it begins to lose its value in her eyes. She doesn't recognize that what she is experiencing is rare. She begins to assume that no matter how she reacts, no matter how she responds, his presence will always be there, stable and unshaken. But consistency is not something that runs on autopilot. It takes energy, it takes intention, it takes a man making a conscious decision every day to show up for someone who may or may not even notice the weight of what he is offering. When that effort is dismissed, when his care is treated like background noise, there comes a breaking point, a moment where he realizes his consistency has turned into a burden rather than a gift. And instead of pouring himself out into someone who doesn't see it, he quietly begins to pull back. That steady rhythm that once filled her days with reassurance slowly fades, and what was once constant begins to feel like distance. The shock doesn't happen immediately. At first, she barely notices the difference. She tells herself he is just busy, or maybe distracted, or maybe even playing a little game. But as time passes, she starts to feel the gaps. The good morning messages that used to arrive like clockwork don't show up. The phone calls that once came without her having to ask are no longer there. The attention that was freely given starts to feel scarce. And in that scarcity, she realizes just how much space his consistency filled in her life. What she thought was ordinary now begins to feel extraordinary because she sees how different life is without it. Consistency is often invisible until it disappears. It is only when the constant care turns into distance that the value of it truly reveals itself. She begins to replay moments in her head, how he never forgot to check in, how he made her feel secure even when she didn't acknowledge it, how he always kept his word without her having to remind him. Those moments, which once felt so natural and almost expected, now feel rare and almost impossible to find again. The distance exposes the truth. His consistency was never something she was entitled to. It was something he chose to give. And that is where the missing begins. The comfort she once overlooked turns into emptiness. The attention she once dismissed turns into longing. The effort she once thought would never end now feels like something she cannot get back. She realizes that consistency was not just a routine, it was love expressed in the purest form, through action, through patience, through reliability. But now that consistency has transformed into silence, into absence, into distance, she cannot escape the awareness of what she lost. What makes this shift so powerful is that consistency builds emotional dependency without her even realizing it. When someone shows up every day, you begin to depend on it subconsciously. You don't plan for it, you don't demand it, but your mind begins to expect it. And when that expectation is no longer met, it leaves a void that nothing else can easily fill. Other people might give her attention, but it won't feel the same. New conversations might keep her distracted, but they won't carry the same weight. Because consistency is not about grand gestures. It is about being present in the small, ordinary ways that slowly become the foundation of her emotional world. When that foundation is pulled away, the emptiness feels far bigger than she imagined. Step 3, respect grows in absence. Respect is one of those things people rarely think about when everything is easily available. When someone is constantly there, giving without limits, forgiving without hesitation, and showing love without conditions, respect often gets lost in the comfort of knowing that no matter what happens, that person won't leave. A woman can grow so used to his kindness, his patience, his willingness to stay that she stops valuing it. She may start to believe that it's weakness, or that he is desperate, or that he simply doesn't have the strength to walk away. But absence changes everything. Absence has a way of exposing the truth, of turning what she once thought was weakness into undeniable strength. When a man chooses distance instead of begging for attention, when he stops proving his loyalty and instead goes silent, something shifts in her perspective. Suddenly, the same actions she dismissed as ordinary become extraordinary. She begins to look back on the countless times he showed up when no one else did, the countless moments he forgave what others would not, the countless times he chose patience over anger. In the presence of his consistent love, she didn't respect it because she thought it would never end. In his absence, she begins to understand how rare it truly was. Respect grows in the spaces he no longer fills because those spaces remind her of how much he carried. Absence has a way of forcing reflection. When he was always there, she never had to stop and question what life would feel like without him. Now, with his silence, with his distance, she is confronted with that reality. And in that confrontation, she sees his worth more clearly than ever before. Respect is no longer just about how much he gave her. It becomes about the strength it took for him to step back when he realized he was being taken for granted. That choice demands acknowledgement because it shows that he values himself enough not to beg for scraps of love. There is also a dignity in absence that words can never match. When he stops engaging in arguments, when he refuses to lower his energy to chase validation, he commands respect without saying a single word. She may not admit it out loud, but deep inside she feels the weight of that silence. The same man she thought she could control with her moods or test with her indifference no longer reacts. That shift forces her to respect him in a way she never did when he was always available. She sees now that his love was not weakness, it was choice. And when he chose to remove it, that choice made him stronger than she ever expected. What hurts the most is that respect often comes too late. In the beginning, she may not have appreciated his presence because she believed she had options. She believed his love would always remain. But absence strips away that illusion. She realizes that other people do not carry the same patience. They do not offer the same security. They do not show the same loyalty.